Y'all know what it is. Jay Williams, Let's Live Life, and we're back. How do you go from serving your country to serving your time? From going to war to going to prison, where every day is a war. Met a lot of guys along my journeys, along my ways, that had served this country. Came home, and for one reason or another, they ended up locked up. It's been a story in the making, a story I've been wanting to touch on for a while. So today, we're going to get into it. Y'all know I done seen it. I done lived through it. So let's relive it. So before we get into today's videos, I got a couple things I want to speak on, a couple things I want to talk about. One being another YouTuber that I just found out about, a dude by the name of Wrong to Strong. Y'all need to check his channel out. There are some guys out here that was really living that life, that really, seen and did some things, that have taken this platform and are using it to try to help others, to change others, to keep others from going down the road they went down. And for the majority of us YouTubers that, I do the same thing. That try to put something positive back. That try to help the rest of the world not ever have to let that nightmare become their reality. We do that because we've actually lived that nightmare. I don't watch a lot of prison YouTube channels. I don't. I see a lot of things that I don't like. A lot of things I know not to be true. Some channels take it and they make it try to be funny, or, they make light of the situation or make skits out of it. And that's just not me. I don't think there's nothing funny about being locked up. I don't think there's nothing funny with the struggles that come with being locked up. And when these dudes are doing that skit, I can guarantee that when they were living that moment, they weren't laughing. They weren't joking. It wasn't funny. When you're in there and your ribs are touching, you're hungry, and you're so hungry that you're thinking about taking something from the next man or hurting somebody else just to do what people do in everyday life, which is just eat. When you've gotten to that point, there's nothing funny, man. When you see a guy that's never really experienced real violence in his life, and the closest he's ever come to being stabbed or seeing somebody stabbed is while he's sitting in the comfort of his living room watching a horror movie on TV. When you see a guy like that just doesn't fit in where you're at, running for his life, and someone chasing him around and sticking him with a knife while he screams and cries as he pulls away and his shirt rips and the guy just continues to hit him with it, there's nothing funny. With Wrong to Strong, this guy really lived that life. This guy was really out there. He's seen things, he did things, and he's taken that, and he's, it's the gift and the curse. You're cursed to have to go through all this and to have chosen, that life, but then we're given the gift to be able to help others. And I support that dude and what he's doing. Hey, big salute to you, bro. You got a supporter here. You got a brother in me. Then on another topic, man, on another subject real quick before we get into this, man, I had the worst nightmares last night. When I mean nightmares, like, I ain't never been so happy in my life to hear my alarm clock go off. Got home yesterday, I ate my dinner, spent time with my sons. My wife works at night, so I spent time with my sons. And then time for little man to go to bed. He sleeps in the bed with me. He's almost 4. He'll probably be there till he's 14, but I'm laying in bed. I done eaten, showered, whatever. He's laying beside me. He's on my arm. He's watching his tablet like he does every night. Same routine. And I'm watching a show called The Mayans, which is a spinoff of Sons of Anarchy. And the show starts off with the dude Easy back in jail. Something that happened. They put him in jail. He's in his cell. He's doing push-ups. He's doing burpees. And he's sweating profusely. And while he's doing this, he's flashing back to things that had happened to him in prison. Him being jumped, him being stabbed, him fighting. And they did such a good job with this scene that I was kind of in awe when I seen it, because that's exactly how it was. I remember being in that cell and doing burpees and push-ups and lifting a water bag and dipping off the side of the bunks and, whatever I could do to stay in shape, and doing it until the point that my body would give out and I'd be drenched in sweat. And when I felt like it was time to quit, I would just go another hour, flipping decks of cards, thousands upon thousands of push-ups, and my body had just become this prison machine that could do it. So I go to sleep, and as I'm sleeping, I coast off into these dreams. And the dreams are just, all morning I've been trying to think about exactly what it was that I was dreaming about, and it started coming back to me. I was in my home, my kids were asleep, everybody in the house was asleep, and I heard a noise. And I looked out the door, and I seen a whole bunch of people. I don't know who they were. And it's one of the things where dreams are like all choppy. And I see people all around me and people in the house. So I run to my closet and I get this machine gun, this AK-47, and I make my way throughout the house. And I just start shooting anything that ain't supposed to be there. This is all in my dream. I don't get shot. I don't get hurt. I don't get injured, but then the police show up and the police take me away. And part of this comes from a conversation I had with a dude yesterday about, the stand your ground laws, how if someone's in your house, they have to be physically harming you or killing you here in the state of Virginia, or someone you love, enable for you to attack them. They can break in your house, be in your house, you can see them with a gun, but until they actually physically harm somebody in the house, you can't do anything to them. So in my dream, I'm thrown back in prison. And it's so real that, in most of your dreams, you can tell yourself, I'm dreaming, and you can wake yourself up. I keep telling myself, you're dreaming, and I'm saying it out loud in my dream. And the people around me are like, bro, you ain't dreaming. You're locked back up. You're in prison. They take me to the house in my dream because they couldn't find the gun. I show them where the gun's at. My little boy runs up and grabs onto my clothes while I'm in shackles and is just crying hysterically, screaming my name. My other son is crying. Everybody is crying. And they drug me back out the house with the gun, put me in, the cop car, and took me back to prison. And then it wouldn't be long after that I woke up. It's a rough, rough night. So with all that being said, let's jump in to today's first story. Now, I've talked about Smitty in the past. Smitty's the guy that worked out on the loading dock when the guy, had the cat get killed by the guard with the pallets and stuff. Smitty used to sit out there. That was Smitty's job. I did a lot of years with Smitty. Me and Smitty were in the same pod for many, many years. Michael Smith. And the only reason I'm going to say his name is because I went to go pull up his release date and I found it, but I also found a whole list of Michael Smiths. So what I'm going to say, I don't have to worry about tarnishing him in the future because it's a very common name. But we called him Smitty because his last name was Smith. Smith for short. People just started calling him Smitty. I had a good friendship with Smitty, and I could call it a friendship because we never had any type of, we never clashed, never beefed. Smitty, like I said, he worked the loading dock. He would be out there where the trash was. He'd compact trash all day, sit in his chair, smoke his cigarettes. Anything that came from property that we weren't allowed to have or was confiscated would go to the trash. Smitty would smuggle it back to the pod, and he would always give me first dibs on it. I got everything from Smitty, from bags of tobacco to, pornographic freak books to CDs, TVs, CD players, shoes, jeans. Smitty knew I hustled. Smitty knew I had money, and that with me there was no bullshit. If I told you, yeah, I'll take it, you know what I mean? I'm going to take it. I'm going to pay you for it. I was always a stand-up guy when it comes to keeping to my word. Smitty, over time, we got really close, man. And he ended up getting shipped away before I did. He got sent off to Nottoway. He was in for a transfer. He'd been at Greensville a long time. So he got shipped off. But in the time I was at Greensville, about 5 of my years were spent dealing with Smitty on a daily basis. Smitty was an older white guy, late 40s. Smitty got locked up back in the 90s after parole had been abolished and done away with, so there was no chance of Smitty getting parole. And Smitty carried himself like a lifer. The way he dressed, the way he, conducted himself, the way his cell was set up, you would think he was a lifer. But one thing I always noticed about Smitty is Smitty kept his boots laced tight. And when I mean laced tight, like somebody in the military would. His boots stayed laced tight. I don't care if he was going from his cell to the microwave. Never seen him in a pair of shower shoes. This pollen's killing me. You never seen him, in anything else but his boots. And his boots were laced up and he was ready to go. So I walk up on something one day that I didn't really know Smitty was into. And it opened up a door for conversation on how Smitty, ended up in prison. What I walked up on was Smitty getting high. Smitty's in his cell. I knock. It's Jay. What up, Jay? And I step into the cell and Smitty's standing there and Smitty's about to do some heroin. And I'm like, all right, I don't like seeing this type of shit. Yo, I'll come back, man. I didn't tell him that, but I just like, yo, I'll come back, man. You busy right now. I'll come back. No, you good? What's up? I said, nah, it's business, man. I'll come back and holler at you in a little bit. Smitty does what he does. Comes down to my cell, and he's more or less like, what was that about? And I'm like, man, that shit just makes me uneasy when I see it. You know what I mean? I don't like seeing this shit. So he was like, it's all right. It's cool. I thought you knew, man. I should have said something to you. Or not. I should have told you just hold off. I never knew much about him or his background, just what I knew from prison. But this day we would get into the conversation of how he got started with dope and what led him to prison. Smitty tells me, I'm a U.S. Army Ranger. Shows me this tattoo he's got on his arm. And by now, Smitty is covered in all types of prison tattoos. He has been locked up a very long time. I think at this point, roughly, maybe 13, 14 years, Smitty had been locked up. He tells me I was an Army Ranger. He said, I served my country. Started telling me all these other countries he had been in, places he had fought in. And he tells me, I loved serving my country. I loved being an Army Ranger. Took a lot of pride in it. I was good at it. And, it started to make sense because I would see Smitty running these laps with his boots all laced tight. Not running laps in tennis shoes like most guys. This guy's got on a pair of boots, like prison-issued boots, and he's outside running laps. These boots hurt your feet, but Smitty was conditioned. So Smitty tells me, he says, there's somewhere something happens. And he said, I can remember the night everything happened perfectly. He said where we were at, we had come across a large stash of drugs. He said, people shot at us. We returned fire and we ran them off. They called into who they needed to call to, and they said, protect the stash overnight. We will be there tomorrow. They were going to bring them fuel so they could burn all this cocaine and stuff. The people dropped the fuel off. They set all this stuff on fire. But as they're in the midst of setting off setting these drugs on fire, he gets hit with a bullet. He said the dudes have been plotting, waiting. They're off in a distance watching, and they open fire on him before they can try to dump all this fuel and burn all these drugs. He said they open fire and he takes a bullet. He said they returned fire, didn't lose any of their guys. A couple of them have been hit. He said so he ends up getting, taken up out of there. He said the crazy thing with it is I didn't leave right then and there. He said after I got hit with this bullet, it would be, a better part of, almost a day before they actually got me up and got me out of there because they couldn't get any helicopters or anything into the area where we were at because it was so heavily wooded, and they had to get me to a clearing spot, and a couple other guys to a clearing spot, and plus the helicopters were taking fire when people were, when they would try to come in. The people they were fighting against would open fire on the helicopters, so they couldn't risk the helicopters being dropped. They get him up out of there. He said he returns to the States. First, where he's at. He's in a hospital for a little while. He returns to the States. He said the bullet was a big caliber. It did a lot of damage. Hit him in his lower back. Blew out his lower back. Came out his front. And just like that, his time as a U.S., in the U.S. as an Army Ranger was over. He said he had to go through all types of therapy and different things to try to learn to, function as he used to. Just all these different things that come with taking that type of trauma. He said he never took into play that the entire time he was going through all this, they were pumping him full of drugs. He's like, Jay, they were giving me, you name it. He's like, once you take a bullet like that and it does that much damage to you, he's like, they're giving me morphine every day. I'm taking Percocets. I'm taking Oxys. He's like, I'm taking the strongest stuff you can take to help deal with this pain. Because not only do I have a fresh hole in my back and in my front that's healing, but I've also got the damage that it did to my internal organs. So my insides hurt. He's like, they're flooding me with all these drugs. He was like, I get an honorable discharge. I get let out of the services. And just like that, I went from being overseas, fighting for my country, to just being dropped back into my everyday life. He said they would keep me on the pain pills and all this stuff for a while. He said then they started slowly, gradually trying to take me down on the doses. He's like, but this stuff is still hurting, and now they're lowering my dosages, so I'm taking twice as much as I was. Not to mention he's picked up an addiction now. He's got a habit now. So he's got to, in order to keep from being sick, instead of just eating the one Percocet like the doctor said, he's got to eat two because they've cut his milligrams in half. It comes to a time where they cut his pain pills off. He said, when I tell you I got sick, you can't imagine how sick I was. He said, I've been on these pain pills now a couple years. I've been back home 2.5, 3 years now. And the whole time, they've just been feeding me pain pills, feeding me whatever I needed. He's like, and I knew I was abusing them. I knew I was doing more than I should, but it wasn't an issue because they would just give me more. I could go to the doctor, tell them I ran out, and they would give me some more of them. So Smitty said he's still getting his prescriptions, but they're now, a couple of the prescriptions have been cut off. The ones that he really needs have been cut off. The morphine, the oxys, all that stuff is gone. Now they got him more or less on low doses of Percocets, low doses of Vicodin. And he's like, Jay, I'm eating these things by the handful, and they're not doing what they should be doing because they've taken all these other things away from me, and I'm just getting sick. Comes to a time where they've cut it down so low now that he's like, I could take the bottle they gave me of the 30 pills, and in the first 2 or 3 days, they would all be gone. The doctors wouldn't write me no more scripts. From there, I'd be sick. He said I had another buddy that I knew before I went into the services I grew up with that, had also went into the military, went into a different branch, did his time in the military, and got out. Well, his job here, this is what Smitty told me. He said his job here was, he worked here in Richmond, and they had a place out here that's, I'm just going to say part of the military, that they stockpile weapons. He was like, and his buddy's job was to go there, and his truck, he had like I don't know what type of truck, but he would pick stuff up and haul it from one place to another place for the military. He was contracted to move these weapons. He said he rode with him one day, and, he said, I've still got, my military ID and all that. Plus, even in prison, Smitty kept the military cut. He said, I ride with him one day just out of curiosity, bored. I don't have much to do. I don't hang around a lot of people. He's ex-military, so we can relate. I feel safe around him, talking. He said, as we're driving, I'm asking him, like, so what do you do? Where are we going? He's like, I got to pick up some stuff from this place and take it to another place. It's all legit. This is his job. Smitty said he looks over and the dude's got a clipboard on the dash. The guy leans up, gets the clipboard, flips back the first piece of paper, and was like, this is the load I got to pick up. They're guns. Smitty's like, so you just pull up, give them your ID, give them this, they sign it, they tell you where to go, and you load up guns and drive off? That's pretty much what I do. And then I take them to where they go, they inventory to make sure everything's there, you know, that the tag hasn't been popped on my truck, that it's still closed, and they unload it at the next place. He's like, shit, that's sweet. He's like, yeah, that's what I do. Smitty said he gets to a point now to where he has gone from doing the pills, and he's got a couple other people that he deals with, that he knows, that he was buying pills from on the streets. Can't really get the pills he's looking for no more, and the dude introduces him to heroin. Dude tells him, man, you spending a lot of money on pills. Like, this little $20 bag of dope right here is going to do the same thing to you. It's going to save you a lot of money, you know. And Smitty said he had never done no hard drugs like that. He had never even done pills like that until after he came back from the service with his wound. He said against his better judgment, he snorted the heroin. He said all the sickness in his stomach, all the pains, all the things he thought about all the time when it came to what he had done while he was overseas, everything he had seen during war, just everything that comes with somebody that actually had to live that part of your service. He's like, when I did that dope, I took that first little bit of dope up the nose. He was like, it all went away. He was like, it was almost like I could breathe and I could smile and I didn't have that stress on my chest no more. Not to mention I wasn't sick from withdrawing off the pills. He says, you know how it goes, man. He said, I started off buying a 20, a 20, a 20. Next thing you know, I'm buying a half gram, half a gram. Then I'm buying grams. He's like, and meanwhile, I'm still getting my, you know, my checks sent in every month from where I did my time, you know, my military services. He's like, and now I have a full-blown heroin addiction. He's like, this isn't months after I tried that first bit. He's like, I don't even care about the pills anymore. I just want the dope. He said, I've now gotten into a situation where I've you know, ripped people off. I can't pay for the dope. So I'm trying to find new dope dealers and stuff. I don't have the money for the dope. I'm sick. He said, so one night, I get this bright idea. I'm going to go by my buddy's house and steal his truck. He said, as long as that clipboard is in the truck, he said, this dude sometimes would do 2-3 trips a day. You know, he'd been with him on several occasions. He said, I steal the clipboard. I steal the truck. Look at the clipboard, and I go through the papers and stuff, and sure enough, he's like, I know what's listed on these papers. He's like, I know what these guns are. I know what's in these crates. I've held everything they've got that they're loading in the back of this truck. So he pulls up to the place, says hi, hands the guy the ID, and it was his buddy's ID that was hanging from like the visor. He said the guy just kind of glimpsed at it, handing the clipboard, said it wasn't really illuminated. There was a light on top of this little building. He said the guy signed a piece of paper, handed it back to him, and told him go around the back and pull it to bay such and such, to door such and such. He said he about shit himself. He said, I just know they're going to be like, you know, you're not this guy. He said, but apparently these people the military had several different guys, not just my buddy, but several guys that were running loads back and forth from them from base to base. Said he pulls around back, pulls up, hands the piece of paper to the guy standing out there, rolled his window down, handed it to him. The guy said, all right, back up. So he backed up. They loaded the truck up, put a tag on it, came back, paper been signed off again, said he took it, put it on his clipboard, leaned back, told him, you know, thank you, whatever, and drove off. He drove down to South Side Richmond. I know exactly where he drove once he told me. Popped the back of the truck, and in the back of this truck, there's over 500 fully automatic weapons. Machine guns, military guns, in crates, all in the back of this truck. The truck is loaded up with all this stuff. Said he got, at first he's like, I don't even know what to do with all these guns. He said, so I take one of the guns out the case and I go show one of my dope dealers, and my dope dealer's like, what do you want for them? How many you got? He's like, I got as many as you want. He's like, well, what do you want for them? So he said he sets him a price. God gives him a whole bunch of heroin, gives him a whole bunch of money. And Smitty said in the next few months, he would get rid of hundreds of guns throughout the projects, throughout Richmond. They would get moved up north, down south. He said, and I cared, but I really didn't care because I was caught up in the fact that now I'm a drug addict. He said, I knew what these guns were capable of. I knew, I'd seen them, I'd used them on people. These guns serve one purpose and one purpose only. That is to kill. These aren't guns you can hunt with. These aren't guns you go target practicing with. These are guns that are meant to kill men. Said he took the, I don't know what he did with the truck. He didn't even ever tell me what he did with the truck after he unloaded the guns. So that part I can't tell you. He said, but somehow or another, they figured out it was him. Oh, somebody got caught with some of the guns. A house got raided. They caught the guys with the guns. The guy told them, we got them from Smitty. Smitty brought the guns here. They go to Smitty's house, raid Smitty's house, and there is only a couple crates of these guns gone, missing. I mean, like, still left. All the rest of them, out of 500 some guns, are gone. I think Smitty said he still had like a total of 60, 70 guns left. He said they interrogated him. Smitty would go on to get found guilty. That's just be given so much time. He said that when he was in court, he had people he had served under that had higher ranking than him come and speak on how great of a soldier he was, on how they had checked up on him since he had got shot, and how it had changed him, and that this wasn't who he was. He was a good man, but he just fell into this addiction that came from this gunshot wound, that came from serving his country, that came from the enemy. And this is what caused this to happen. Said his trial took, not a long time because they had all the evidence they needed. He said the judge came back and told him, I also served as a young man. But unlike you, I didn't betray my country. Smitty said, the judge told him, you of all people should know what these guns are capable of. And what would happen if they were to fall into the hands of criminals or people that shouldn't have them. And that's exactly what you've allowed to happen. He sentenced Smitty, and I asked Smitty, I said, so what's your release date? When do you go home? And Smitty just kind of looked at me. Didn't tell me if he had life. Didn't tell me how many years he had. He just looked at me. He said, I'm going to put it this way. He said, the last time, last I heard of it, they had recovered a bunch of the guns, but there's still a couple hundred of them missing. He said, you tell me how much time you think they gave me for over 500 stolen U.S. military rifles. You tell me. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, Smitty, why aren't you in the feds? Shouldn't you go to feds for that many guns? He was like, I was distributing them throughout the streets of Richmond. I was selling them within the state, selling them to the drug dealers. He's like, plus when they caught me, I had drug paraphernalia all throughout the house and other things. But to make a long story short, if Smitty does eventually get released, he'll be lucky to not be in a wheelchair. He'll be lucky to be able to walk up a flight of steps because he'll be an old man. You go into something thinking that what you're doing is for a bigger cause or the right cause or a bigger purpose, and you really don't know what the outcome is going to be. Smitty said he had planned on serving the military the rest of his life and retiring from the military. Said he never planned on taking that bullet that morning, never planned on being laid up. He knew it was a possibility, but he didn't expect it. He expected to live out his days in the military and then retire. He said, you never could have told me that I would one day shoot heroin and start doing heroin, or that I would ever steal anything from anybody, much less from the military. So Smitty's still locked up. Smitty's gonna be locked up for a very, very, very long time. Smitty went from proudly serving his country, fighting in wars, to serving time. Think before you act, people. I would have loved to got into more stories today of guys I did time with that were in the services. But Smitty's story had to be told. It was a long story. For you to fully understand it, I had to start with everything I knew about Smitty, everything I had heard, and give it to y'all that way. I'm going to do some follow-ups, some volume 2s, 3s, 4s, on other guys I knew that were incarcerated, are incarcerated. You know, these things, some of these guys, they range from everything from drugs to murder due to PTSD. I hope to one day see Smitty again. Smitty's not a bad guy. He's just a guy that let the worst take over. Salute to anybody that has served this country, that has fought for our freedom, and for the right for us to live the lives we live in the greatest country in this world, hands down. We live in a country where we take things for granted, and there's a joke because it's not something we have to deal with every day. We don't have to fight for our lives every day. A lot of us put ourselves in situations to where we have to fight for our lives, but there are other countries where people are dying and fighting every day just to have the rights that we wake up to, that we don't even realize we have rights to. So once again, much love and salute to all the military. You know, to my stepson, Epi J. Hey, salute to you. He's also an Army Ranger. You be safe out there. It's Friday, so y'all know it's payday, payday, payday. Got to go get this money. Wanted to put this to y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed, you know, Smitty's story, man. Hope somebody learns something from this and learn to, you know, do what you know is right. There's always another way to go about doing something. But anyway, these prisons, detention centers, jails, facilities, they're all just crazier worlds inside of this already crazy world we live in. Y'all know what I'm doing. Just trying to keep y'all entertained. Are you not entertained? And like always, this is Jay Williams. Let's live life. To all my real ones and awesome real ones watching, because y'all still watching me. Y'all know how we do. Salute.